If you want to be successful, don't think I want to go from nothing to CEO. Go and work hard. We would become lazy. You know what I mean? Yeah. This generation, it's like you see these TikToks and these memes and everything about like, I have to work a 9 to 5. I shouldn't have to work a 9 to 5. It's like, that is a blessing. No matter who you are, no matter what situation you come from or what you think you lack, with God, you can make something huge of yourself.
Yeah. Guys, welcome to my good friend, Christina Clark. What is going on? I'm so happy to see you.
Hey, I am so thankful to be here. I love your podcast. I've been watching it and I'm just honored to be here.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Well, check this out. So there's a lot of different directions we're going to go throughout the course of the show. But one of the ones I want to maybe hit on first is I'm in a new season of life. So I built a business from scratch from 98 to this past year in 2023 when I finally exited that company. Turned the company over to some fantastic gentlemen that I've personally got to know and spend time with. So I've got a lot of trust in them. They're already killing it, which is great because I still have some equity interest in the business, which is even better.
Yeah, even better.
Yeah, but in the grand scheme of things, you know, I spent the first almost 3 decades of my life super career focused, right? Especially starting a company from the trash piles of a construction site, then learning leadership and learning teams and learning business and learning sales and fulfillment and the list goes on and on and on. I find myself, and our mutual friend Randy, one of the things that I was sharing with him before I just relocated to Utah, was this next season of life, I'm not looking for balance, I'm looking for choice. And I choose to be more with my family than just focus solely on building businesses upon businesses upon businesses, because I learned the hard way that money doesn't really bring joy or fulfillment. It brings the ability to have stability. It brings the ability to be charitable. It brings the ability to be philanthropic at a larger level. It brings the ability to invest in things that could be created. So there's a lot of blessings.
Yeah.
But purpose and meaning, I'm finding more. I'll tell you this much. So the girl I've been seeing has a 3-year-old son. And just before we hopped on here, he was literally in my arms with his little butt hanging over here, hugging on my neck. And I'm thinking to myself, this is amazing.
Oh,
right? So I share that story to say that I think a lot of the folks that watch and listen to the podcast, okay, they're awesome people. They're getting after it. They're building businesses. They're building careers. They're building meaningful lives. But the one thing that I would go back and maybe rework a little bit 10 years ago was a bit more of choice of making sure I'm saying yes to the right things and no to the right things so I can have more of the special things.
Yeah.
So I know you made a similar decision to switch in your own life. And I'm curious to know from your perspective why that's so important, because I know your podcast is uber successful. You're becoming massively successful in your podcast, and a lot of hope, a lot of light, a lot of generosity, a lot of love, but a lot of stuff around family and synergy and marriage and being synergistic with what life is supposed to be. So maybe tell me how you kind of came to that knowing yourself and why you decided to pour so much energy into that new endeavor.
Thank you for asking that. Like, I don't think anyone's ever fully asked me that question. So that's a deep one, but I will say there are several things, but there's one defining moment that I will say that kind of I've surrounded my podcast around. So a few years ago, actually 11 to be exact, I was having a baby, my first child. And in the first 6 months of all this happening, my daughter almost died. She was on her deathbed. And by the grace of God, a huge miracle, she ended up surviving and against all odds. But in that same time, my brother was on the streets using heroin and meth. Mm. And this was the most devastating thing to me in my entire life. We're only 15 months apart. And every day I was praying my heart out, please save my brother. And I would try to call these motels. And one time I got a hold of him and then he was gone. And it was, just very transient life because that's what drug users do. And one of those people that was asking for money at the gas station because their car broke down or they ran out of, whatever it is, panhandling. And this went on for a year. And every single Sunday I was fasting. And for those of you who don't know what that is, I'm sure most of you know what that is, but that, when you give up food as a sacrifice and as a plea to God, like, please in return, not that we tell God what to do, but please in return, I'm begging for this thing. Like, please save my brother. My family situation we come from is not the most stable situation. Mm-hmm. And so it was hard to rally together as a family when we're all broken up, Sure. So I felt just so alone during this. And anyway, there was one Saturday morning this is after a year of this going on, that I got a call, and it was a 480 number, and I'm from Arizona, and I knew right away this was Arizona, but I knew it was 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. I knew this was my brother, and I knew he was in jail.
Mm-hmm.
And so I picked up the phone, and sure enough, it was him. And he was going through withdrawals, and he's shaking, and he's like, Christina, you've got to bail me out. You got to bail me out. Help me. And I said, see if you can get one more call and call me back in 10 minutes. I'm going to see what I can do. I get off the phone, say a prayer, plead my heart, bleeding heart out to God. Like, please,
Yeah.
this is my one chance. Called every single person in my family and said, don't you dare bail him out. This is our one chance.
Yeah.
He'd been bailed out before. And I was like, that's not going to help him.
It never helps. Yeah.
Never, no. And he had gotten, he'd been thrown in jail on a technicality. It was basically, like a light was out on his car, and then they found out that his license was expired or, suspended or something, because it always is in that lifestyle. And anyway, and so then I called the courts and I said, he's a flight risk. Keep him in as long as you can. He was so mad at me, gives me a call back, and I said, Josh, I love you so much. I'm so sorry. We're not going to bail you out. He was so mad. And when I would try to call, it's this whole process to try to call the courts or try to call the jail. And every single time I would call, he would cuss me out. He was so mad. He's going through the most painful withdrawals.
Mm-hmm.
And the way he describes it is, it feels like every bone in your body is breaking. You're also super, super sick. All the things that are going on. Well, they kept him in there for over 30 days. Well, when those 30 days were up, I packed up my newborn baby. I just loaded my car full of stuff, and I drove down to Arizona, and I said, you are not leaving my side. This is right after you got out of jail. If you're going to the bathroom, I'm waiting outside the door. Like, I don't know how long I'd be here, but this is what we're going to do. He ended up getting clean. He's now been clean for 11 years. He broke the record, the world record in weighted dips. He now manages the largest student housing project in the state of Utah, very successfully, breaking records for them. He's married and has more children now. I mean, it's the biggest miracle. And to see, if you look at statistics, it's less than 2 to 3% chance that they'll ever get fully clean if it's heroin and meth and living in the streets.
Yeah.
I mean, he won't even take an Advil because he doesn't want to change the state of mind at all.
Yeah.
And he just had a major elbow surgery. He wouldn't take any painkillers, and he was suffering, but he will not go down that path ever again. And to see that you can come from the lowest, the dregs of society, and now be, you're in the, in the top 1% now of the money that you're making, and you have this successful family and everything. To see that miracles do happen when you put the two things together of faith in God, real faith, workable faith with evidence, and hard work and determination, you can literally overcome anything. So that's been kind of the basis of my podcast, is hearing stories of people who've overcome. In fact, Elizabeth Smart was on there. We all know her story. She overcame a lot, so that's one of the many stories, but probably the biggest one.
No, I love that. In fact, it makes me think of something real fast. And I knew our conversation might go a couple different directions. I'm gonna kind of lean into this one for a second. It seems to me that in my life, and then in the lives of people that I know that have become uber successful, quote unquote, on their own, like we know there's a greater power that's driving the bus, right?
Definitely.
But I can't, on the top of my head right now, I can't think of one single person that has been uber successful that has not had to go through a crushing. And it reminds me of a friend of mine. My very first live event, I don't know, I can't remember with my audience. I don't even know if I've shared this with my audience before. My very first live event in 2017, I was supposed to teach for 3 days straight. I had 14 keynotes lined up back to back in a 3-day seminar called Transform You. The night before, I was notified that my then executive team had planned to try to take the company out from under me and embezzled like $1.7 million. Okay.
We've definitely been there. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. It's not fun. The crazy part was, I had a good friend of mine there. She kind of, walks in prophetic circles. That's kind of her way of connecting to God and stuff.
Yeah.
And she walks in, and I'm about to lose it in tears.
Oh,
Like, I'm supposed to step on stage and teach for 3 days straight. I have no idea what's going to happen to my business. I have no idea what's going to happen to my
logical anxiety right now.
Yeah. So, but she comes up and she says, oh no, honey. Oh no. I'm like, she kind of stunned me a little bit. And she goes, this is the cost of the calling. You can't go to where God's taking you to until you go through here. This is a gate. This is a life gate. You got to go through this door. Yes. Crazy part was, I'll share this with you, and I'll share it with my audience publicly now. Maybe I can't remember if I've done it yet before or not. But up until that point, I had been told that I was supposed to be a speaker and an author and do all these things that I am doing now. And I'm supposed to do them at scale. But up until that point, I wanted those things for the benefit of myself, not for the benefit of others. After that point, everything that I did after that became for the benefit of others in spite of myself.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So I want to jump into the cost of the calling, or the cost, because again, there's a crushing phase that I feel like holds people back a lot from moving forward. They resist the crushing. And your brother's a good example of, I resisted so much so that God wants your attention bad enough, he will force the crushing upon you, kind of thing. So maybe kind of give me your sentiments on that, because I know you got some vibe on it.
You know what? That's an interesting question. My husband says this all the time, that humans, we want to take the path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
It's just human nature. We want what's easy. And especially now, this makes me feel like such an old man, like get off my lawn by saying this now. But this generation, gosh, I feel so old saying that. But this generation, it's like you see these TikToks and these memes and everything about like, I have to work a 9 to 5. I shouldn't have to work a 9 to 5. It's like, that is a blessing.
Yeah.
That is a blessing to be able to work. I was telling you this before we started. My husband and I just got back from Cambodia and Vietnam and just kind of Eastern Asia, and just what they wouldn't give to be able to have just the run of the mill 9 to 5 job here.
Yeah.
We are so insanely blessed.
Yeah.
And to shove that aside as if, no, I don't want to do that. Like we would become lazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I had someone ask me this the other day. We were actually at the phone store. I was upgrading my phone and I don't remember. Oh, that's right. We started talking about like, this is a college kid. I said, well, where do you live? Well, anyway, he happens to live in one of our housing projects, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, how funny. We own that. And he was like, wait, you guys are the owners of that? And he was like, well, how do I get successful like that? And I could tell this kid was driven. He was this cute Hispanic kid. He was young. He had an accent, but he wanted it. And I said, do you really want to know? And he said, yeah, I really want to know. And I said, just exactly what I told you. I said, go and work hard. If you want to be successful, don't think I want to go from nothing to CEO. You have to go through, like you said, the crushing period. That's one of the things I love about you, by the way. You can just feel it, just emanates from you. You're just like,
thank you.
Do this, you know, the excitement for life, the excitement for work. I love it so much. But one of the things my brother, when he first got clean in those first 2 weeks that I was down in Arizona, I said, all right, this is the first thing. You're going to need to be busy. Let's go get you a job. And he's like, no one's going to want me for a job. Like I've been on drugs and I have a record and I, you know, all these things. I said, stop thinking that way. Go start as a dishwasher.
Yeah.
So I said, you don't have a car. What's the closest place? He was staying at my mom's house just for a few months there. And I said, there's an Outback Steakhouse right there. Go see if you can be a dishwasher.
Yeah.
He didn't, there's no pride in him. That was the first thing, because pride is a barrier.
Pride. I love that.
Pride can be pride is blinding. It talks about that in the scriptures. Pride is so blinding. We think we have to be this. We think we have to be that. No, be humble and doors will open. They will really, really open. So he goes and he says, you know what? Wherever you need me, that is where I will go. I don't have the greatest record. He was honest. That's another thing. He was honest. I'll be a dishwasher. So guess what? He did that for like 6 months. Well, they loved his work ethic. So then they lifted him up. Okay, fast forward like 6 years later, he was now managing and the most successful manager of any Outback.
Let's go.
In a 6-year period. But he started as just been clean for 2 weeks from heroin and meth. And so there's that. Well, then also take my husband. I don't usually say this publicly because for obvious reasons, but my husband is uber successful. Very, very successful. Yeah. And I mean, people who know him know that, but
there's absolutely nothing wrong with him being uber successful.
Yeah, right. I know
because you guys are uber philanthropic. Because let's be honest, the audience doesn't know this, but I do. You guys are uber philanthropic. So
yes, he is. He's actually he is probably the most generous human you will ever meet.
I call it overflow.
Yes, I love that. I'm going to use that. I'm going to give you credit, but I'm going to use that. That's awesome. But yeah, he went through the crushing period you're talking about. He talks about like when he raised his first $1 million. Well, first he started working for his dad and he grew that company like crazy because he's just the hardest workhorse you have ever seen. And grew that. Well, anyway, they have a falling out and it was a really painful experience. And he decided, you know what? I'm going to show him. I'm going to go raise my own money. So he raises money and he starts his business. Well, but in the first year, fails miserably. But now he owes all this money. So he raised $1 million. He's like, I've never in my life wanted to disappear. Like I didn't want to die. I wanted to have never been born. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
I wanted to never been born. I not only lost that money, but then some.
Yeah.
And so he's like, the only option was to either just quit and disappear or double down.
Yeah.
So he's like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to have to double down, go raise more money, put myself more at risk, but just work as if my life depends on it, because it kind of does. And then he ended up being a like record breaking sales for the,
Yeah.
he ended up being the number one provider of Dish Network. Remember Dish Network?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't know, no one really uses that anymore, right? But like, they became the number one provider of Dish Network in the nation. And he became a multi-millionaire, at like 31 or something, And, but then fast forward to 2008, and then another crushing period, another humbling situation happens. And when people are losing their house, you think they're going to pay on Dish Network?
Yeah.
No, everyone's losing their house. Everyone stops paying. And it's like the crazy amounts of money coming in just stops. Then he has a fraudulent business partner too. So I'm like, there.
Yeah.
I'm marrying him at his lowest. So this is the beautiful thing, because he got to see, like, I couldn't care less about the money, because guess what? Not only was that all gone, all of it gone. Now there's a $6 million IRS lawsuit because of this fraudulent business partner. All the things are going down. Well, I married him in the middle of this. And people have referred to him as a phoenix rising from the ashes, because he could have given up and been like, I'm such a failure. I can't believe I have all this and it's all gone. Nope. He decided, you know what? I'm going to take whatever little amount of money I'm making right now. I'm going to put this into a technology company. Well, that technology company he's built up has become one of the unicorns here in the state of Utah.
Yeah.
And then he decided, well, since that's running smoothly and that's hired out, let me do this now. I'm going to do this company. And he's built it back up again. But that just proves that you can take, no matter who you are, no matter what situation you come from or what you think you lack,
Yeah.
with God, because you better believe there was a lot of prayers, a lot of asking. Another thing we did too in our religion, we have the temples that now that you're in Utah, I'm sure you could throw a dime and like see a temple, but we were going to the temple every single week. Anything that we could do to access the power of God in our lives, we were doing it, and being honest, being super honest with our fellow man too is another thing we're doing. But it doesn't matter who you are, what you've come from. You can make something huge of yourself. But it does require those hard things, having faith, which is a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
Well,
they say that even being atheistic requires faith.
Yeah, and
There's enough evidence now to say, hey, you're jumping on a limb here. And so anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But yeah.
I've got a lot of opinions on that too. I have close friends of every walk of life who I love and adore.
Me too.
And we have these conversations, and it's a beautiful thing, like to believe in God. It really is. Really,
well, I want to pivot just a little bit, because I bet if we had your husband sitting right beside you right now, all this adoration and adornment and blessing you're throwing his way for his work ethic, his willingness not to give up.
Yeah,
I guarantee he would say that having you in his corner during the rebuilding phase would be incredible. And I say that because I'm fortunate to be seeing someone right now that has a Proverbs 31 mentality.
I've met her. She's awesome.
Yeah. So she's, so I'm kind of like thinking through those types of things. I'm like walking through, I'm like, it's not impossible without a partner that's willing to stand beside you through thick and thin, but it's so much better. It is so much better. And, in the Bible, it talks about Proverbs 31 woman. It says it's in a roundabout way, it's kind of written to a man from a man's perspective, but it's about the essence of a real woman, right? So I'm going to jack it up a little bit. So a Proverbs 31, a virtuous woman, a virtuous wife who can find, for her worth is far above rubies. The heart of her husband can safely trust her, and he will have no lack of gain. Okay. That's phase one. Phase two is that she wakes up early. She has her own business. She's actually running her own teams. She's actually doing her own things, and she's building the family for the family. You know what I'm saying? And the more I get to know you and talk to you and learn more about you and what you guys have done, the more I see that synergy between the two of you guys.
Thank you.
And so as you're looking at that, how important is it to have unbelievable communication in a marriage?
Oh, where, oh gosh, I don't even know what avenue to take this because that's such an important question. First of all, let me just say how inspired you are. And let me say thank you for saying that. That was so kind of you. I mean, because I wasn't even thinking of credit towards myself. And that was so like generous of you to give that compliment. But let me just tell you how inspired you are. So I have a clip coming out today. I have a team that makes these clips for me for my podcast. And it's one I felt very, very inspired to do. And it usually, if you look at my podcast, you don't see me talking a lot. I like to really put the attention on other people.
Which we got to change. We got to get you out there.
You are now the seventh person to tell me that, but anyway, we'll talk later about that.
Yeah, because and Randy knows I can help you do it. So
I know you guys are the masterminds with this stuff. I will gladly accept that help. But anyway, there's this. I've had this feeling for weeks that I was supposed to post this clip of myself. I hate to admit this. I let fear hold me back a little bit, and I find there's like, you know what, God, if you want me to do this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to put it out there because I'm going to get so much hate for this, and I kind of don't care. I kind of feel like, you know what, if this is what's right, I'm going to do it. But it talks about, and I know your question was about communication, but if you don't mind, I'm going to kind of gear it towards the first part that I was thinking of when you started talking. So marriage and family, there is nothing on earth that matters more. And if you look at any social media or anything on the news or anywhere, there's a trend right now, especially towards women. It's geared towards women. I personally think it's coming straight from the adversary. If you ask my personal opinion on that, to make women not want to be interested in marriage and family and not having children. And they talk about what a burden that would be and they glorify this life of singledom and, you know, all these things. Anyway, this clip coming out is me talking about, please do not give in to the lie that marriage and family are not worth your time. There is nothing on earth that will be more worth your time. And I can testify to that. So yeah, I did these businesses and things like that before. And I always give my input to my husband on his businesses and things like that. And he likes to credit me with stuff. And I think that's very, very generous.
Every time. Yeah. No offense, but that's it. I was telling Chas one time recently, I was like, you know what? Here's the thing is I want to know. If you get a bad feeling or spidey sense, I want to know.
Yes.
Like immediately. Yes. Doesn't matter if you know the inner workings of whatever deal I'm working on or whatever. If you get a bad feeling, we go into a room and you just get a bad feeling about so and so. I need to know.
See, you're such a good man. That's something a lot about you, though. That shows the humility we're talking about. Like instead of like I'm, big successful Stephen, because you are. You could easily take it that route if you wanted to, but you're willing to listen. Like, you know what? You have a lot to give too. Even like you said, even if you don't know those aspects of it. So there have been 3 times that I told my husband, I do not feel right about these people. And all 3 times I was right. There's only 3 times. I usually don't speak up. I mean, there's people I tell them like, I don't know that I love them, but they'll be fine, But 3 times I was like, no, they have very bad intentions.
Yeah.
And they did. It was proven later on that they did. And that's not to say like, oh, I'm so right all the time. It's not that. It's like, I feel like I'm going to give where I can get. But with right now, like I had my businesses and stuff before, and I do have my podcast now, but I take all that energy. And people have told me they think this is wasted. I totally disagree. I have I have a degree. I ran these businesses and stuff. And they're like, well, what are you doing now? In fact, I had an old employee come up to me. I ran into her somewhere and she said, so what are you doing now for work? And I said, oh, I'm still working just in a totally different way. Yeah. And they're like, what? And I said, I'm
raising leaders.
yeah, exactly. And she said, no, I mean like a real job. And I
like
never
a real job.
like I never forgot that. So like that's what society thinks is like you have to be in the workforce in order to be doing something credible. But if you're someone who was raised by a stay-at-home mom, I've never met anyone who did not appreciate having a mom. 100%. And if you were someone like me who did not have a stay-at-home mom, I've never met anyone who didn't wish that they did.
Yeah.
And so I take all the energy, the whatever expertise I have, my experience, everything, and I put it fully into raising my children and being the best wife I can.
Yeah.
Think about how much my husband appreciates that. I'm going to make every feminist right now throw up, and that's okay. But I have a dinner ready when my husband gets home from work. And not only just a dinner, most nights it's like, the table's set in a beautiful way because I'm going to put every ounce of energy I have into doing the very best I can for whatever my job in life right now is. Yeah. And that's being a wife and a mother.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, my daughter who was supposed to be special needs, she just skipped a grade. My other son just skipped a grade. They're saying my next 2 are projected to also skip a grade. And this is not to brag, but this is because it's showing the effort that I've decided to put into this and not waste on things that will have no fruit.
Yeah.
And that's nothing against working moms. Sometimes you have to work. And even some women who don't financially have to work, maybe mentally need to. This is no shame in that. This is whatever your job is, put your full amount of effort into it, and let's stop judging each other.
Yeah.
You know what I
100%.
mean?
Yeah.
This is
100%.
my time. I'm going to do it well.
Yeah. It has me thinking too, like, when I first connected with Chas at a personal level, one of the things that she told me early on is she's more interested in a traditional based relationship, meaning future marriage, all that kind of stuff. Like she's like, I'm totally cool with being in a wife capacity and having a
Yeah.
husband in a husband capacity. I'm saying, well, okay, well, that's in alignment with how things tend to work best. Not saying it's the only way, not saying whatever, but the interesting part about that is what you just shared about your own household shows the intentionality. And I think intentionality is what breeds momentum. So if your husband knows, for example, that the
I'm
home
going
is
to write that
completely
down. I love that
absolutely.
intentionality.
So that if your husband knows that the home is completely safe and sound and he has faith in that, then he can let that go out of his mind while he's doing his business, right?
Mhm.
I'll also tell you, flip side for us, Chas is very much the same way. She's huge cheerleader, loves helping me win, which is great. We also are in the process of shaping her brand for her show that's going to be coming out later this year, and a book and all
She
this kind of
told me
stuff.
about that. So cool.
Right. So you take all of these different parts and pieces and you put all these things together. And what you see is it is possible to have two individuals operating in two different giftings and still have a partnership that operates in a succinct gifting.
Oh,
Right.
yes.
And I think a lot of times that's the disruption, because anytime you can create a division, you can separate performance. You see what I'm saying? So from my perspective, I personally tend to be more of a traditional mindset when it comes to marriage, relationships, stuff like that. And I'm that way because for me, from what I've witnessed, is the couples like Randy and Shar, for example, are great examples as well. The couples that are unified, the children do really well. They do really well. Their businesses prosper.
Yeah.
And Shar had her own business that they exited a number of years ago. It's like,
Well, she did.
it's not saying you can't have an
Totally.
uber successful profession and
If that's
still
your
be
calling, yeah.
exactly. So I think that's where people get it missed. I think the lie is that you have to choose one or the other or
Yeah.
some variation of it.
Yeah.
I think from what I've heard you explain and what I know what Chas and I have talked about, it's just getting clear on what each other expects for the role and responsibility.
And getting clear on what, and goes back to God. And I know not everyone believes in God, but for me, it's been getting clear on what is it that you want me to do?
Yeah.
Because it might be, hey, I want you to start a business while you're raising a family. Great. Go do that. That's great. We need leaders. We need female and male leaders,
Yep.
Um, but like for me personally, it's been, okay, let's hold off on that. And it's been way more successful. I know my husband's capability right now is going to be way more successful, not because I don't have that capability, but
Yeah.
because I know that us together, me working on this and him working on that, we're going to have way more success
And more
and,
fun.
and way more fun. Yes. Way more, like instead of us both coming home stressed, like he gets home and not to say it's not stressful raising kids. Oh my gosh. It is.
It's stressful in both camps.
Oh, yes, there's stuff, but it's a different kind. And
Mhm.
so he's more excited, to be with the kids when he gets home, and I'm needing a little bit of a break. I need adult conversation and want to hear about work. So I'm ready to be all ears about work and everything like that. And it's this amazing partnership. It's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's the key word. Relationships, if they're going to be relationships, have to be partnerships.
They do. Yes.
Right. And a partnership reminds me of a bit like playing tennis. There's always someone serving. There's always someone bouncing it back. Like it's always a ping pong back and forth. I think what I'm trying to make sure the audience fully appreciates, and I think my intent behind this particular show is, again, not showing balance, but showing choice, showing depth of choice, right? So getting to the place where we could illustrate that a defined partnership with intentionality that is actually unified together can grow a business, can grow a family, can grow an impact, and all the philanthropic overflow that comes with it. And you guys are an amazing example of that. So I applaud you guys for that for sure.
Thank you. I love the way that you said that too, because let's be honest, is there actually really something known as balance? I mean, maybe there is from my life experience.
It's more like a balance beam.
I know, like, yeah, it's like a teeter totter. Like,
Yeah.
there are times when it's like, okay, guess what? I just had a newborn. That means I'm not going to be balanced in my sleep or
Yeah.
exercise or anything. I'm just not going to be balanced. That's just the way life is. but I can focus on this at the time, and I'm gonna be heavy focused on this. And at a different point in my life, I'm gonna be heavy focused on that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like you said, choice. That just shows how inspired you are. Again, like it's choice. It all comes down to that. And that's one thing too that my husband and I were talking about recently. We've been trying to teach our kids is you are a product of your choices.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do the blame thing in our house. If
Yep.
you hate your sister, it's not your sister's fault because she made you mad. No, you have a choice. And that's on a very child level, but even as an adult,
It's
there's
still an adult level.
yes, yeah, exactly. There's
Yeah.
so much blame going on, but the people you look at who are the most successful, and I don't just mean financially, that is part of it, but
Yeah.
I mean, you are actually like happy and truly joyful
Mm-hmm.
and feel, you feel safe and you feel peaceful and you feel all the good things in life.
Yeah.
You are a product of your choices. And that's not to give glory to yourself. That's like a partnership with God, in
Yeah.
my opinion, because like you're trying to make good choices, but you're also relying on him. That's my personal opinion.
No, and I think that's spot on. In fact, I was telling the audience a few different times in a few different shows that, I have the benefit of coaching and strategizing some 9 and 10 figure earners. And a lot of times though, in those categories, there's a lot of missing joy, missing fulfillment, missing meaning, but they have everything under the sun, right? That they can go and do and whatever they want. And many of them are still philanthropic. It's not like they're not giving, but it's what I've seen that's been missing a lot is the connection with the family.
Yeah.
It's like once I can get them reconnected with the family, get them reconnected with their spouse, get them reconnected with the partnership that thing can breed.
Yeah.
It's like the anchor of fulfillment then elevates everything.
I love it.
So that's why even though it's outside looking in, it's like, okay, we have a special marriage. It's great. It's awesome. I love it. Da, 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 da. It's unique.
Yeah.
It's a unique positioning of what life could be like. Cause you guys do enjoy the ability to be, uber successful financially, philanthropically, the whole deal, but you guys have meaning and fulfillment because you have each other.
And because we have God. And that's the thing too, is like this is an entirely different podcast, but like another factor to look at is families who are very successful and more unified. They go to church on a normal basis.
Yeah.
I mean, I know this. I've said probably 5 things on your podcast. You're probably like, "Oh, these listeners are going to be so offended."
No,
But
no, about half our audience comes from all walks of life.
okay,
50% of them are believers, and 50% are searching.
and I'm able to say this stuff as someone who went through periods of life that didn't live like this. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
And again, like I said, I came from a home where I had a working mother and a mom who wasn't really around that much, and maybe didn't love motherhood that much, And so I'm saying this as someone who has actually lived kind of, these lifestyles and stuff, and I've found for myself, if you're just asking my opinion, the things that have worked for us, take it or leave it. That's what's worked for us,
Yeah. No, I love it. Well, look, I want to go back to the work ethic thing because I know that's something you're super passionate about. One of the things that I see with work ethic in general is most people won't put in the work because they don't think the work's going to matter. It's like that. It's because they can't see the end from the beginning, And for me, when I look at work ethic, I was telling my middle son this, who's now an adult and is married and the whole deal. When he first got out of high school, he's like, I don't know what to do with my life and da 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 da. And I'm like, dude, you're great with people, so I know for a fact this could be something good with people. You're going to be a pastor, an evangelist, an entrepreneur, a speaker. Like the oyster is yours, kind of thing. I said, but my advice to you right now is to go knock something over. Like just get up and go knock something over. Go knock on a door. Go shake a hand. Go mow a lawn. Go rake some leaves. Just do it.
Yes.
And the momentum that's created by up-leveling your work ethic over and over and again, you mentioned earlier, opens the door for massive opportunities.
Yes.
Was there ever a time where you struggled with work ethic? And then if so, how did you shift it?
Oh, definitely. I say this as I'm a workhorse and so is my husband, and we can both work circles around just about anyone we know. But I have been in that downward spiral, and I always call it that because it is one. If you're not, it's like that phrase, God can't steer a parked car.
Yeah.
If you're sitting around doing nothing and hoping for the right opportunity to come, it's not going to come.
Yeah.
You have to get up and go. So I say this as kind of a hypocrite because I have been, I have been that person. So I remember when I was younger, I was wanting to start this business. But you need capital a lot of the times to start a business. I was like, I have this idea in my head and I knew it was something I needed to do. but I wanted to, spending so much time planning, which can also be a problem eventually if you're spending too much time planning. And I needed to go get the money, so I actually needed to work. My family didn't have money. My friends didn't have money. So I was going to have to go work to get it. But I spent so much time, and now we're into like months of like, I'm running thin on whatever funds I had left just to like live.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like having this feeling like, just go work, just get up and go get a job. I don't care what it is. Go get a job. So you're doing something. You will feel what I like to call the Holy Ghost or the Spirit.
Yep.
You
Yep.
will feel that in your life. That's what creates comfort and peace in your life. You'll feel that excitement for life. You'll start getting ideas, which
Mm-hmm.
I also think are from God.
Yep.
You'll start
Revelation.
getting all these answers when you get up and do. And so, yeah, there's a lot of times in my life where I can say like, some of them were pure laziness. That's what it was. Some of them was anxiety driven, like, well, I need to do this, so I can't do this. And so you get so, forget all that. Just get up and work. I have a friend right now who I love dearly, one of my very best friends. She's been out of work for over a year. She quit her job without having another job, which I think is a big mistake, or
Mm-hmm.
without having a plan. Her hope was, I'm going to do some stuff from home, but she didn't have a clientele built. So
Mm-hmm.
don't ever do that. First of
Yeah.
all, most people know that, but she quit her job without having a job. And her plan was, well, within a couple of months, I will have built up this clientele, which you have to be a realist too. You have to understand, like, you got to build that up first and then transition over. And you might have kind of a hard period there, but you can still make that work. Well, now it's been a year, and now she's, having to stay at people's houses and stay in their room for free or on their couch or
Yeah.
wherever, because she's gone down such a downward spiral. And again, I love this person dearly, but I had even said, hey, I found this lady who needs a nanny, and she's paying more than anyone I've ever heard of paying for a nanny. She's like, well, it's
Mm-hmm.
not quite what I want to make. And I'm like, just go work, like, just go get something and
Yeah.
start moving. And if you don't know what to do just yet, get outside, start running. Just start running, and
Mm-hmm.
then pray as you're running. Just get in motion, and ideas will start to come. And then just go work. Even if you have to go bottom of the barrel, that humility, you'll be so blessed for. It's like I said of my brother, just go
Yeah.
get and do something, and you'll be so blessed.
I love it. I love it. Well, look, I've enjoyed hanging out with you for this time. This is
Thank you. Me
amazing.
too.
Can't wait to get you guys to know even further now that we're officially neighbors. It's gonna be really cool.
Yes.
In the meantime, where can the audience find out more about you, the podcast, all that good stuff?
Oh, thank you. So, I just actually started it probably about 4.5 months ago. And it, like you said, it's kind of taken off a little bit, but, on Instagram, it's called Good Things Spotlight. On YouTube, it's Good Things Spotlight. We actually took it off of the podcast forums, and I'm quickly finding out that was a mistake because so many people have been like, I can't find it anymore. But we were spending so much on our camera and editing and our cameraman and everything that I was like, no, they need to see people's reactions and stuff and watch it on YouTube. And so we might be putting it back on those podcast forums this week. So on all of the forums, it'll be Good Things Spotlight.
Awesome. Christina, thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait to get
Thank
to know you
you.
better and see you soon.
You too. You're awesome. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
I hope you liked that video. And if you did, make sure you check out this next video right here.
Chronic illness is ultimately the leading cause of death in the United States at 71%. We've accepted that normal is 69% of our population is either obese or overweight. At this rate, by 2030, it means that approximately 70% of the population will be obese or overweight.